This is not an April Fool's joke. I mean, it's not April, but Torgny and also Wafura are the two commanders you are gifted at level 60, fully expertised, when you enter the Heroic Anthem power-up version of KvK. And not only do the developers just give them to you, but they also turn into siege towers that do ranged combat. That's right, ranged combat is here in this version of KvK and Rise of Kingdoms. So in this video, I'm going to give you the full rundown on these two commanders, how ranged combat works, and how the new engineering talent tree works out and should be built. Hello, my friends, and welcome back. I'm Chisgule Gaming, and I am in the new power-up version of Heroic Anthem KvK, and when I send the new siege commanders that literally everybody who enters this version of KvK gets for the duration of this KvK, you can plunk them down somewhere and push that special button to make a tower. Now, as you can see, the tower has a certain radius. That radius will hit, or you can target, things within it to do ranged damage. So I'm just going to put the tower right over... Wait. Oh, okay. So I can't put this wherever I want. I can put it on my own alliance territory, and I can put it on nobody's territory, but I can't put it on non-alliance territory. Very interesting. Let's just plunk this thing down right over here. We're going to smash the build button, and we're on our way over. Now, the thing that is a bit of a bummer about building this tower is that it takes a full 2 minutes to do. So you're going to see as soon as I've arrived that I'm going to start constructing my tower, and it's going to take time. Those are my siege units that went into this. You do need full siege units to make this dream a reality. Now, you can see the icon has changed over here on the commander, and I am building a siege tower. While that happens, why don't I give you a rundown on what the heck these commanders do and how you use the siege towers. Hey, by the way, if you're enjoying the video so far, do me a huge favor, throw a like on here and consider subscribing. It's 100% free to you and truly does support the channel to smash the like button. Thank you. But let's start with their skills. You have two commanders here that you were gifted, Wafura and Torgny. I think Wafura is the better primary commander, but I will point out that although you must have one of these commanders in your march in order to make the tower, you can actually have both of them out in separate marches, and you can make two towers if you wanted. The downside is that a lot of commanders don't actually have skills that enhance what they do, and active skills other than their active skills don't work when you're in tower form. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Active skill on Wafura deals ranged skill damage to the current target. Damage factor 2000. This damage can only slightly wound units and can be used while in arrow tower. Can only be used in that form. Now, also, I will point out, by the way, they have no equipment. You cannot put equipment on these commanders at the time of this recording. That is definitely significant. Next up, target practice. Increase attack of Wafura's siege units by 20% and their march speed by 30%. All of their troops deal 20% more ranged normal attack damage. Amazing. Next skill. Increase counterattack dealt by Wafura's troops. So this is only relevant if they actually come up to your tower and start hitting you, at which point, by the way, you're just wrecked, and I feel like your trade is going to be pretty bad. There is a 10% chance to increase normal attack damage by 30% when hit with a normal attack. I mean, honestly, you're not getting hit by normal attacks very often. Truly. Increase the defense of Wafura's siege units by 20%. This really doesn't matter all that much until you're getting hit, and hopefully you're not getting hit. 10% chance to decrease the target's attack by 30% when launching a ranged normal attack. That's pretty good. Effect triggers once every 5 seconds, and the final skill makes it so that you have 25% less severe wounds when you are in arrow tower form. I will point out that when you are in arrow tower form, you only inflict slight wounds to the target. You don't inflict severe wounds. Speaking of which, while they're here, let me just launch a little attack here and show you how the arrow tower works. Yeah, it's fine. I'll have War Frenzy. I'm going to launch a little attack on this guy. You can see he's within range. I only can inflict slightly wounded. No hospital bill here, so I don't feel bad about doing this. And I hope they don't mind. I'll just say it was an accident. Okay. Now, the other thing I will point out is that in this new version of KvK, you have peaceful mode and aggressive mode. And if I just flip this into aggressive for a moment, I think I'm just going to start shooting this guy. Am I? I'm not. Okay. I'm not just going to start shooting him. That's good news. I am going to shoot him now, though. So here we go. You select him, you hit attack, and pew pew, here go the arrows. Now you can see I'm not doing much damage. It's really like not all that impressive. Okay. And you can use this to hit a barb. Maybe I should have hit a barb instead of a player. This is fine. This is fine. It's my own war camp. There's the active skills. They fire it off. I am hitting a Boudica. I am 35 million power. I'm not god tier levels of power. They're 48 million power. They are not god tier levels of power with god tier equipment. And I'm not doing all that much damage, okay? For perspective, it's like not all that much damage. But the fact that I can do this is pretty significant, especially because if you've watched my other videos, and by the way, it takes 5 seconds to disembark from this form. There we go. I'm out of arrow tower form. I'm going to go back to peaceful, and we'll pretend like that never happened, okay? Everything is fine. It was an accident. My bad. Okay. Now, the weirdness here is that when you're building your tower, you can't actually go anywhere. So if I build this tower again, I will point out that I have no way to move. Okay. And I have no way to disembark from making my arrow tower. This is problematic. I have 2 minutes of basically just being a sitting duck. So this is the sort of thing that you want to set up and then use blockades to prevent the enemy from getting to you. I made a full video about how you can physically stop a march's motion separate from this one. Card will be up in the top. I went way in depth on the blockade mechanic, which is pretty cool. So we're going to make our way back into that arrow tower form, and let me show you the other commander on the list, Torgny. Now, Torgny has the same expertise skill. By the way, reduces the proportion of Sev wounded units by 25%. So you take 50% less Sev wounds, which is important because I think when you're in arrow tower mode, you are kind of just going to lose the trade when they start smashing you, which, like, what did you expect, right? We can't have these arrow towers be too overpowered, at least in their first version. I feel like it's safer to make them a little bit too weak and then buff them later, if they feel like it's necessary, than to have arrow towers just be so OP that nobody can run anywhere or do anything, right? So, Flame Tongue's Kiss, active skill. Increases ranged normal attack damage, dealt by 30% for 5 seconds, can only be used while in arrow tower form. And, second skill, increase attack on Torgny's siege units by 20% and defense by 20%, and troops deal 20% more ranged normal attack damage. That's really all they're doing for the most part is ranged normal attack damage. Earth-shattering roar. While in arrow tower, take 5% less normal attack damage. Again, like at that point, you're just dead. And when hit with a normal attack, troops have a 10% chance of dealing skill damage back to the attacker, damage factor of 1,000. This effect can trigger once every 5 seconds. Final skill, force of 1,000 storms. Wow, so dramatic. Increase the health of Torgny's siege units by 20%. And when hit with a normal attack, have a 10% chance to increase their defense by 30% for 3 seconds. This effect triggers once every 5 seconds. Okay. That's all well and good. And it's not like you have a lot of choices for pairings. I'm going to talk about that in just a minute, about who the likely pairs are with these commanders if you're going to run them as 2 separate marches and make 2 different arrow towers. And they do have to be in the march to make arrow towers, and it does have to be all siege units. But I first want to go over the talents. For Wafura, I think this is the best build. Now, I also want to take a moment to just go over the talents that you see here, because you'll be like, what am I even looking at? And if you're not in this KvK, you can't actually tap this stuff. So at the base of the tree, you've got march speed, obviously important. Attack of siege to the left. Up top, you've got defense. To the right, you've got health. Okay. Continuing to the right. Strength and unity. 3% more troop capacity. Always strong for open field stuff or normal attacks at range, apparently. And then will to power. Increase the defense by 9% if a troop's unit count has reached 50% of its unit count. Okay, so when you're below 50%, you get a little more defense. Basically, when you're getting wrecked, you get wrecked maybe a little bit less. Off to the side, we've got health of siege, attack of siege, and defense of siege. And all the way to the right, we've got ebullient, which increases your damage dealt to other arrow towers. I don't know when you would ever need this, because unless I'm misunderstanding, think about it. It takes 2 minutes to build your tower. So it's not like you're going to like roll up on some other tower, spend 2 minutes getting in tower form, and expect to still be alive. So actually, I think that talent is probably just waste now that I've seen more of how that sort of siege tower mechanic works, but I will live stream all of the fighting that I do with these commanders in this KvK, and at least if I'm not fighting, watching other people try to use them. So subscribe so you don't miss out on that, okay? Here we go. Cornered fox technique. Oh, cool. This is like a martial arts movie here. All of a sudden, increase counterattack damage dealt by 20%. This is really not very important talents. Once they're up on top of your tower, you're done. Increase ranged normal attack damage by 3%. This is the kind of stuff that I wish the tree had more of. Off to the left, well fortified, increase health of siege units. Like, health is cool, but at that point, you're basically already dead if you need health. Irrepressible, health of siege units, okay. And then we've also got packing light, march speed of siege units. That's very good. More march speed with siege, they're so damn slow. Attack of siege units, that's great. Swift maneuvers, march speed by 50% when leading a troop composed only of siege units. Brilliant, very, very good talent, well designed. Up next, defensive maneuvers, reduces skill damage taken by 20%. So much of this engineering tree reduces the damage you take, but by the time you're taking damage as a tower, I feel like it's already GG territory. And then the most important talent all the way at the top, increase damage dealt by the next ranged normal attack by 50% for 5 seconds. Once the battle begins. So does that mean for the duration of the fight you have forbearance? I mean, we don't even really need to understand exactly how it works, because if you're picking these commanders, like, look, the versatility tree is not an option. The options in the attack tree are sparse, okay? So I'll show you what's in the attack tree, but you're going to max out the engineering tree exactly as I've done here. Let me show you the attack tree and what I took and why I took it. I took Burning Blood. I have to, because it's on my way to Effortless. The longer you're in combat, the more damage you deal. You're going to stay in combat for a while because you can hit many targets at range. This is a huge win. Lord of War gives you extra attack. It was a prerequisite. I also went for Fight to the Death. Increase my damage dealt and taken. I want as much punch as I possibly can get. The goal of being a tower is to do as much damage as you can before ultimately you get wrecked when they ride up on you. So, GG. Got to do as much damage as you can there. And our armor joints, I went this way just to, like, mitigate some of the damage that you're taking. I don't have many options at this point. I can either increase my counterattack or reduce the damage I take. They were both fairly marginal choices. Theoretically, I could actually go all the way to Martial Mastery, and this could be pretty good, increasing my normal attack damage dealt, but reducing my active skill damage dealt. If I get a look here, though, Wafura does have active skill damage, so I don't know that I really am in the market to reduce his active skill damage. See what I mean? If we go to Torgny, he has the engineering versatility and defense trees. Theoretically, you could run a full defense tree, I suppose, but again, once they're on top of you and you're dying, like, these talents are not very relevant to you. You're just dead. So instead, I would focus on the engineering tree, as I've done here, with the exception of these 2 points, which I put there before I understood how arrow towers worked. And then I would go all the way over to here to the march speed. Super crucial. You're too slow. You desperately need march speed to both get to where you're going and at some point get home. You're just way too slow with siege units. The defense, I don't know, is all that relevant. The rage when you're attacked, I don't know is all that relevant. Pretty much everything in the defense tree is just making you tankier. There's not really a lot in here that is overly helpful when you're in this arrow tower form, which is why I think Wafura should be the primary and Torgny should be the secondary if you pair them together. And if you split them up, I mean, you got to use them as the primary in order to go into arrow tower form, I think. I'm pretty sure that that's the case. Either way, you would want his talents, so you'd want to use him as the primary. Now, on that note, who could you pair these commanders with if you're making 2 split marches? And now we have the weird task of looking at the siege unit commanders. Now, in my experience, none of the active skills of commanders actually worked when you were in tower form other than Torgny and Wafura. So we did a test where we had Sun Tzu with Wafura, and Sun Tzu never used his active skill, for perspective. Pretty sure the passive skills still work, though. But Cleopatra gives troop load, and when you're gathering, she does buffs, so she's not a good siege unit pair. If we look at Sundok, Sundok gets more interesting, okay? Active skill does damage factor, but that doesn't matter when you're in tower form. Also, when you're gathering in resource points, you get a buff. Well, that doesn't matter. When troops led by this commander consist of only siege units, all normal attacks have a 10% chance to deal damage to the target, 500 damage factor, 1,000 when maxed. This is pretty decent. I mean, we're really reaching here, right? Like, we have one passive skill that actually helps. We're really reaching to try to find something good here. Let's keep going. Ishida, what does he do? He gives troop load. Well, that doesn't help. And he gives a health bonus. And when serving as a secondary commander, you have 15% extra skill damage. Poggers. So you could pair him with Wafura, I suppose. And then normal attacks of troops led by this commander have a 10% chance of healing your troops. Either they're on top of you and you're dead, or, I mean, I just don't think this is going to be all that relevant. But I think Ishida is a reasonable candidate as a secondary. Now, other reasonable candidates that aren't siege commanders would include commanders like Julius Caesar, for example. If they are actually on top of you, right, you can reduce the damage that you take, which is pretty important, and you have more troops to begin with, which means your normal attacks will actually do more damage. Okay, so that's one consideration. And if we get a look at the remaining siege commanders, Joan of Arc makes it so you have a chance to heal and normal attacks boosted by 25%. Joan of Arc's not the worst choice. Also, Matilda is a shockingly decent choice here. She might be the best choice, in fact. 30% health and 30% defense. That's 60% of stats, but that's only relevant when they're attacking you. But you do get 15% more troop capacity at the cost of 20% attack. That's actually pretty decent. And I think that's like pretty much it for the siege commanders that are relevant. Normal attack damage is increased by 10%. Actually, Queen Tamar of Georgia is pretty decent. And a chance to reduce the target's attack. Okay, Queen Tamar of Georgia, pretty decent. I need to test this to see that this skill actually applies to the enemy, but that's pretty good. And 10% extra troop capacity is actually pretty good. And her expertise skill only enhances the active skill here, so this is really not going to do anything for you. Yeah, I mean, I think those are kind of your best choices. I mean, Constance, load boost, nope. Resource boost. I suppose Gaius Marius does give you march speed, relevant to at least get to where you're going. I mean, this is hilarious. Sarka, troop load, troop capacity on Sarka if you really needed it. Okay, what do you got, Centurion? What do you got? Gathering speed boost, defense boost of, wait, was that 3%? 3% defense. All troop types, though, Pog. And, 5% troop capacity. Okay. I mean, I just don't think that there are that many great choices. I think your best option is to pair the two siege commanders together and to run like that. But if you come up with any other crazy combinations, I definitely want to see those. Let me know down below in the comments. I'll be looking for that. I do think that the siege commander tower mechanic is going to be interesting in a couple situations where you have a ton of time to set up. So for example, when you're defending a pass, right? Like you could set up a barricade and you could set up a ton of towers behind it. Now, do I think that you're better off bringing these siege commanders and making a tower rather than having another open field march? No. I think you're better off if you have good commanders and good equipment to make an extra open field march. But do I think this might be a cool way to make players that don't have a lot of commander depth able to, first of all, field their siege units, and second of all, contribute something that way? Yes. And I think that's where these commanders really shine, giving players that don't have a lot of commander depth an option to both deploy their siege and also to just set up where the team asks you to set up and just leave it there if needed. Like literally just when you go offline, they say, put your towers here, and you go offline and like, yeah, you're going to take some wounds, but you can actually fight supporting your team while offline, I think. I don't know. We'll have to see exactly how that works when you're on aggressive mode and if a enemy walks into your sort of attackable radius, how that goes, or if you're just a punching bag at that point. Anyways, if you like the video, throw a like on here, consider subscribing. We'll explore all of these mechanics once we're actually fighting in this KvK, which should be in the next couple weeks. I look forward to it. And if you want to see the live stream where we really push the boundaries on all of these tower mechanics, I'll have a card up in the top for that stream where we tested everything we could think of. And until next time, you have fun smashing the kingdom.